Hello, my name is Dr. Richard Milne, and I'm going to give you a very brief introduction to the topic of climate change and those who dispute it in the media. Now, you do not actually have to be an expert in climate science to understand the basics of climate change science. In fact, it's made up of 4 simple facts, proven facts, and very actually quite easy to understand facts, and 2 causal relationships. If you understand those, then you understand the basics of the science. Okay, so our first simple fact is the property of carbon dioxide. Now, sun's rays come in at a relatively high wavelength, they hit the surface of the Earth, and they re-radiate, a lot of them as infrared radiation. And it just unfortunately happens that carbon dioxide absorbs energy in this spectrum of infrared, and so it converts radiated energy into convected energy, keeping it in the atmosphere. So the more carbon dioxide you've got, the less energy escapes back into space. It's like putting an extra blanket on your bed. So we've known that since the reign of Queen Victoria. Scientists worked it out back then. It is not controversial. Okay, second fact, human beings, since the Industrial Revolution, have emitted upwards of 1 million tons of carbon dioxide. That is a huge amount. And again, that's not under dispute. You can quibble about the exact figures, but it's not under dispute. Third fact, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is going up. It's going up steadily. You get these very regular annual wiggles because of the seasons in the northern hemisphere. Certain times of year, more of it is locked up as plants than at other times. But on a yearly basis, it is steadily going up. Okay, that's fact number 3. Fact number 4, the planet is warming up. It's not as regular as the carbon dioxide levels because the individual years are warmer and cooler, things like El Nino, sunspots and things like that, volcanic eruptions occasionally, causing years to fall out of the normal pattern. However, the oceans are warming in a much more regular way. Okay, so those are 4 facts. None of them are disputed by rational people. But we ought, for the theory to be correct, 2 causal relationships also have to be correct. The first one is actually very simple. Is it all this carbon dioxide that we're pumping out that's causing the levels in the atmosphere to increase? Well, there's nothing else that can be causing it. And if something else was causing it, where does all the carbon that we emit go? In fact, what happens is, of the carbon we emit, half of it ends up in the oceans, making them more acid. That's a whole other problem. And the other half goes into the atmosphere, gradually increasing carbon dioxide levels. Obviously, it circles into and out of plants as we go through the year, but the amount of carbon in the system increases. Volcanoes, you may have heard volcanoes emit more carbon dioxide than humans. Rubbish. Humans emit hundreds times more carbon dioxide per year than volcanoes. Okay, so our second causal relationship is the more complex one, which is it this rising amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere coupled with that property of carbon dioxide that we know about, is that responsible for all of the warming that we're seeing? The counter-argument that you may have heard is, oh no, it's the sun. Now, we know that carbon dioxide is warming the planet, but it's a fair question, is the sun contributing? If you look at solar output, you actually see something surprising, which is that the first half of last century, solar output did increase a bit. So warming in the first half of last century, the sun must have perhaps contributed to that. But the sun has not got any warmer since about 1940, 1950. Therefore, warming since then has to have another cause. And incidentally, the sort of sun's output wobbles on a 10-yearly basis. That's sunspot cycles. Okay, so is there direct evidence that it is carbon dioxide that's warming our planet? Well, yes, there is. We get it from satellites. Satellites monitoring the energy leaving our planet. So it goes in as the sun's rays, it goes out as infrared light, and that escapes back into space. Otherwise, the planet will gradually overheat. So the satellites have been able to show that in the absorption spectrum, that's the particular wavelength at which carbon dioxide absorbs, and indeed methane, another greenhouse gas, absorbs, the amount of radiation escaping in those 2 wavelengths has gone down, meaning that more energy is being trapped, caused by those 2 gases. So there is direct evidence carbon dioxide is warming the planet. Okay, So to understand any topic, it's good to think about distinctions. So in the case of climate change, the first one is between the advanced science and the basic science. The basic science I've taken you through, you don't need to be a climate expert to understand it, it's very straightforward. But the advanced stuff, things like hurricanes, it's much, much harder to understand, and it is there that there is still a hell of a lot of research to be done and a lot of uncertainty, but not in the basic fact that more carbon dioxide means a warmer planet. Second distinction is between a skeptic and a denier. Now, a skeptic is someone who treats all claims, all hypotheses, with equal criticism. That's very important, equal criticism. And all scientists, proper scientists, are, by that correct definition, skeptics. A denier is somebody who will take one hypothesis as being true, he will insist it's true, and a competing hypothesis he will automatically reject, regardless of the evidence. So any claim, however stupid, that supports his preferred hypothesis, he will accept without criticism. Any claim that he doesn't like, he will reject without thinking about it. So you cannot call these people skeptics. It was completely incorrect. So this is how the mind of a denier works. He walks into a room, there's 100 scientists, 99 of whom tell him that the planet is warming and human beings are causing it. The 100th one says, well, you know, I'm not actually sure. Denier leaves the room. He says, you know what? I met a guy in there who thinks maybe human beings aren't warming the planet. And he may actually forget that he's met 99 people who contradict that. And then he'll go and write in his right-wing blog that he's found a scientist who says that the Earth is not warming. That's how the minds work. That's how they operate. A proper scientist has to consider all the evidence together, especially those few points of evidence that appear to contradict the rest. Because if you understand why those contradict the rest, you understand the whole system better. It's like being a detective. To be a proper detective, you have to consider all the evidence, including the contradictory bits. And until you understand those contradictory bits, you don't fully understand the crime. So that's the job of scientists, to make sense of all the data together, not to cherry pick those 1 or 2 points that back up what it is they want to say. Based on this, there's good science and there's bad science. That's our third distinction. Good science takes all the evidence together and draws an honest conclusion. Bad science starts with a conclusion, which is the planet's not warming, the Earth is only 6,000 years old, there's no such thing as evolution, so on and so forth. That's bad science. So there's a fixed conclusion, and only evidence that supports that conclusion is accepted. Evidence is rejected if it doesn't support that conclusion. So, bad science. Climate change denial, evolution denial, aka intelligent design and hardline creationism. Also, denial that HIV causes AIDS, estimated to have killed 300,000 people in southern Africa, that form of denial. And I have to say it, Holocaust denial. It's not science, it's history. But all 4 of these use the same methods. I'm not making any moral comparison here, it's not for me to do. But all 4 do the same thing methodologically. Cherry-picking evidence that suits what they believe and rejecting the much larger bodies of evidence that contradict what they believe. So that is bad science. That is how bad science operates. Question you may have asked or heard, is there another ice age coming along? Could we be in just experiencing part of the ice age cycle? Well, the ice age cycle is caused by tiny little wobbles in our orbit, which, all other things being equal, the planet very gradually gets a nudge into a slightly cooler phase, and then after a while gets nudged back into a slightly warmer phase. And we are currently in naturally a warmer phase, and interglacial. We have been since basically human civilization arose. And if humans hadn't come along and changed the climate, then we would be nudged back into another ice age in about 10,000 years. However, what has actually happened is that human beings and our carbon dioxide have given the climate a massive, massive push into a very much hotter scenario. And that is far more powerful than the tiny, gentle pushes of orbital wobbles, and therefore there will not be an ice age in 10,000 years that there otherwise would have been. We have prevented it, for better or for worse. One last distinction. between science and politics. Science is about finding the facts. So that's the question a scientist asks. What are the facts? Politics asks the question, what do we do? So it's about society and the direction it takes. And whether you like your politicians or not, that's why we have them, to make those decisions on our behalf. Science works by research, finding evidence, learning the facts. So the facts are there. Science is about finding out what they are. Politics is about just finding out what people want to do, making a decision, and then doing something. So in science, nobody's opinion matters. The evidence, the facts are there. It's just about finding it. Politics, everybody's opinion matters. Politics is about finding, coming together, and making a decision. So, simple example. How much money is in my pocket? I draw out the coins, I count the coins, and there's only one possible answer, so let's say it's £4.13. Politics then asks, how do we spend this money? Well, I want to spend it on ice cream. I want to spend it on flowers. No, ice cream. No, flowers. That sort of thing. Politics is a debate. Science is simply finding the answer. So when it comes to climate change, we know the answer to the science, the basic science at least. Carbon dioxide that we are emitting is warming the planet, and the more the stuff we emit, the more the planet will warm. That's what the science says. It's quite straightforward. The politics is not. Politics asks, what do we do about it? Do we go mad for renewable energy? Do we drastically cut down our use of fossil fuels? Do we try to capture carbon? Do we just change the way society operates? Or do we do nothing at all? Or do we do something else entirely? The problem comes because some, for various reasons, are vehemently opposed to any kind of action at all. Now, the honest way to defend such an opinion would be to say, well, we've got too many problems now to worry about the people in the future. That would be the honest way to defend such an opinion. The problem is that it's far easier to defend it by simply lying about the science and saying the science isn't proven. The first is hard to defend morally, but it's honest. The second seems easier to defend, but it is dishonest. And the problem is that as long as we're having this false debate about whether the planet is warming or not, we can't get on to the debate that we need to be having as a society. What do we do about it? So, this exercise that you'll be doing will be looking at some statements of those who are opposed to action on climate change and having a look at what's going on in these and indeed what is wrong with them. So, good luck.